Well, good morning, everybody. I am the Bald Guy. I am so happy you have returned as we continue our look into Revelation. So, now we are on verse 20. Now, do a little recap of John. He sees Jesus and he sees these 7 golden lampstands, and then Jesus is holding these 7 stars in his hand. Now, as I said, the Bible interprets itself. So, let's look at verse 20, because it's going to tell us what this means. And the mystery of the 7 stars which you saw in my right hand are the 7 golden lampstands. Now, the 7 stars are the 7 angels of the 7 churches. These 7 churches that John is going to write to. Okay? And the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches itself. So Jesus is the head. What it's saying is that Jesus is the head of the churches, and the stars are the angels of the churches that Jesus holds in his hand. Okay, he's holding them in his right hand. Okay. Now, what the lampstands, easy to understand. These are the churches. Okay, but now we come into these angels. Now the Bible does say all throughout the Bible of different interpretations of angels, where they're actual angels, where they're where they're humans that just different things. I didn't really get into all of that, but it is described in many different ways, which you can look up. But now, to figure out what these angels were, we have to look at the Bible itself. Now, we need to remember how the Bible is laid out. First, it's a book, okay? The verses were put in later to help us do key aspects of the Bible. But it was originally in a letter that was put in a whole book. Our past, the present, and future events. Okay? We learned about our history, all of our history, Adam and Eve, all the way, okay? Because we all came from Adam and Eve, so therefore it's all of our history. The Jewish people history. Then we learned about the prophets and how they predicted the birth of Jesus, and then we learned about Jesus' birth himself, about his ministry, about who he was, and then him dying, coming back to life, the start of the churches with the apostles, and then fast forward into future events. And the main point of the revelation itself, that Jesus is coming back, he's going to make a new heaven and earth, everything's going to be wonderful. So that is the key aspect of the Bible. Okay? And the key aspect of each particular book in the Bible, or letter in each form of the Bible, has a key aspect, whether it's history, whether it's prophecy, or whether it is pertaining to future. And future and all its forms is here in Revelation. That means, what does that mean, folks? That means it's a revelation of God. That means things that are going to happen. Okay? So, what are these 7 stars? So, to find out what these 7 stars, which are what these angels were, we have to look at church history. First we know, and let's get straight, that we can safely rule out angels themselves. How do we know this? Well, if we go ahead to our next segment, which is the next chapter, to the letters themselves, Jesus applauds them, tells them what they're doing good and what they're doing bad. Angels' job are just to tell, just to fill out God's mission. So why would they let all these bad things happen in the church? No. Angels just can't be it. Okay? So to find out, we go into church history and how it was set up. Now remember, these letters were written, and John saw this after all the apostles were gone. He was the last. Okay? They were already gone. They had already died and been martyred. Okay, each one of them. Okay, so we know that Paul set up the churches, the Gentile churches, and these 7 churches. These churches were set up in a particular way. Okay, and most of them were house churches. When they got full, another one was set up, and so forth and so on. So it just continued that way. Okay? Now, during that time, that's the way it was. Well, the apostles themselves during that time could not oversee all of these house churches. It was just too much for them. So they reached into history to find out how to do that. And they all knew about Moses and about his system setting up of judges for each particular tribe. So they took that concept, and God gave them a very unique plan to do this. Okay, first he set up bishops that were right under the apostles. You have Christ, then you have the apostles, and then they set up bishops. Now these bishops were they were a select few that were trained priesthood, somebody that was going to be in charge of the church. Okay, and they also helped set up churches, and they were the people that the priest came, and if the church got too big and they wanted to set another church up, these bishops would go help set it up, and they would train somebody to oversee it, to look after it. And they would also get 7 people that would be in charge of money, and we'll talk about it in a second. But that's what these bishops did. They kind of oversaw the church body, okay? And they oversaw the priests. So the priest would come to any bishop, not just any particular one, but any one of these select men, to ask questions, to get approval for somebody new to start another church, things like that. So they were kind of like the body, okay? They were the body itself, pushing out priests to do the job of the church itself. And then there were the priesthood. Now the priesthood, or the private, and they were in charge of the church itself. They were in charge of the sacraments, of the preaching, communion, baptism, make sure everything was done right within this particular church, okay? And then they set up the third and final one for each particular church. They set up diacontes. And diaconte was a group of 7 selected men that were very good with finances, okay? And they oversaw the money. Now, why 7 of them? Well, that's pretty obvious, because one person is very easily tempted, as the apostles saw themselves with Judas, who handled the money, and he kept a bunch for himself. He was the only one that handled money, and guess what he did? We know. Okay, and he hoarded money for himself. So they didn't want that in the church. So they did a select group of treasurers that decided where the money went. And these were these guys. So we can rule out the diaconte as far as who these stars were. Okay, so that was the church order. Okay, and these 7 stars are the church order. So would it be a bishop, or would it be a priest? Would it be the priests themselves of the in particular church? You know, folks, honestly, either or. Either or. I sort of lean toward the priest, but that's just my opinion. But it could be the bishops themselves, because they were specifically in charge. But I sort of lean toward the priest just because of the letters themselves and the admonishment of each one, either doing good or bad, or one church in particular was just doing good, plain. There was nothing that Jesus admonished them for. So 6 out of 7. So to me, these ones that Jesus held in, these angels of the churches that Jesus held in his hand, I would think would be the ones that was actually in charge of each particular church. It just seems more logical to me, but that's my opinion. Okay, I mean, it could be the bishops. I would lean toward either one of these two, because angels just doesn't make any sense at all, actual angels. Okay, and it obviously did mean the apostles, because they were gone, they were dead, they were martyred. There was only one left, John. He was the main overseer of all of these 7 churches. Ephesus all the way down. He was the head guy right under Jesus. He was the last one left. And he looked after all of these churches. And these particular churches did set up more throughout other areas, but this was concentrated on these 7. Okay, because these 7 were the main ones that would preach to the Gentiles throughout the world. Okay, so that's why Jesus particularly chose these churches, which I explained in another video. So, to me, you can lean toward bishops, that's fine. But I kind of think it's priests myself, just by the way it went down. That's my personal opinion on the matter. It is the priest, the head of these particular churches themselves. They were the ones that were either letting in the Jezebel or they were doing in this stuff. You could lean toward a bishop because the bishops obviously didn't do their job if things were going this wrong, because they were the overseer of the priests, and if the priests ain't doing their job, they should have stepped in and done something, and obviously they weren't. So was Jesus talking to them? Could have been. Was Jesus talking to the priest? Could have been. But this comes to my final point, because I see I'm running out of time. So this is my final point of verse 20 itself. Whether you believe this or that, that's okay. We can talk about it. It's cool. But remember the most important thing of all is that we rely on the Word of God itself for the information. Nothing else, okay? That is our main source. And to dig a little deeper, we can go into our actual history, okay? Because that provides a lot of clues and information as far as, but make sure it's actual, folks. Don't get into this worldly stuff that they're, throwing in their own opinions and all this stuff. A lot of people do that, okay? And a lot of people just blindly follow. I'm an historical kind of guy. I love the history. So therefore, if you really want to know, you have to dig in for yourself. Don't follow blindly like a sheep just because a bunch of people say it. This is the way it is, okay? Form your own opinion on certain things, but rely on the main truth. The main truth of the gospel is what we believe. Jesus died for us, okay? And he's coming back, and we're going to be with him in paradise. Okay? Everything else, it's there. Our outpouring of love flows through with what we believe to others. It's so simple. I mean, it's so simple. People can't wrap their heads around it. They have to make things so complicated. And there is absolutely nothing complicated about this. There's no rules. There's no regulations. There's no this or that. Everything that we do and we follow that Jesus wants us to do, we do because we love Jesus and it outpours to everybody else. How simple. Boom. How mind-blowing. Okay? So, that's what I'm saying, man. Just get rid of the rules, get rid of the regulations, folks. We're doing this out of love. We're doing this because we want to, because we're not afraid of anything. Jesus has us, man. Okay? God has us. All right? He has us. Just like this verse 20 says, he had these angels. He's got us there too, man. We're there too. He's got us in his left hand. Okay? All right? And all we have to do is accept, and then everything, your eyes are open and you see this wonderful, wonderful experience. Okay? Just don't be fooled, and don't be blindly following like some herded sheep. You have a mind. God gave you a wonderful mind to explore. And everything in this Bible, folks, I'm going to end with this. Everything in this Bible will last you 3 lifetimes, if not more, over. Okay? And you can figure things out for yourself if you just read. That's why God wants us to continue reading this, okay? You may have read it once, twice, 3 times, but then you continue. And you get into certain aspects of it and figure out things for yourself and understand for yourself. For yourself. Okay? And what do we preach? We preach the gospel, and we tell them to explore for themselves the aspects, okay? Yes, the going to church and the preaching is awesome, and to learn things that way is great. But remember, open your mind to your own personal study with God. It is an amazing, amazing experience that you cannot get anywhere else. All right, folks, don't be those sheep. Love God. Do things out of love, man, because that's what He wants. I'm Ball Guy. I'm out of here. We will continue with the last part of Revelation chapter 1 and then get into this church history. And that's just so much fun. I'm looking forward to that so much. All right. I am the Ball Guy. I'm out of here. Love you, folks. Bye.